Today, I'm going to walk you through each step of the typical home design process where you're designing and building a house from scratch. I'll cover everything from initially mapping out where the home will sit on the land to sketching out concepts for the exterior and interior layouts, all the way to picking finishes like your countertops and toilets. And I'll be using my custom design house that I'm in the final stages of building as an example throughout this video. Before getting started, you should take some time to identify your must-haves for the property. Your goals for the house in terms of functionality and style will definitely affect your design choices. So I would start the process by really hashing out everything that you need this property to do for you. For instance, do you have a growing family that requires several bedrooms and bathrooms? Or maybe you have elderly parents that'll be living in an ADU in the backyard. The chance to design your own house literally from the ground up that perfectly fits your needs is an amazing opportunity, and you may only get one shot at it in your lifetime. So you should be crystal clear about what you're trying to achieve with the design so that you don't have to go back and do expensive renovations later on. The goal for my property was to create a single-family vacation home that would fit the needs of my growing family, but also serve as a high-end short-term rental on Airbnb to help pay the bills. The home design process starts with figuring out what your limitations are in terms of the size and the footprint of the house. And those limitations highly depend on both the plot of land that you're going to build on, as well as your local building codes. So the first thing that needs to be completed is a land survey. You might also hear this referred to as a lot survey or a site map. The point of the land survey is to generate a map of the property that includes any boundaries, the topography, and any obstacles that need to be worked around. So the survey can include everything from the property lines to the setbacks that determine where the structures can be built on the lot, to existing utility line locations, trees, boulders, elevations, and any nearby structures on other lots. So the surveyor, they'll come out to your lot to physically map it out, and they'll also use a combination of county parcel records, utility records, and local building code to help generate a complete site map for your architect. So this is actually the land survey for my lot. You can see that these thicker lines here are the property lines, and these thinner dashed lines represent the building setbacks that tell us the area that we're allowed to build within, and these setbacks are determined based on your local building code. But these setbacks aren't the only thing that you need to consider when determining where to place the house. In our case, we had to be mindful of the existing trees on the property. For example, this tree right here was big enough in diameter to be protected under local regulations. But luckily for us, the tree had been previously struck by lightning and had an infestation, so we were allowed to remove it after going through this whole crazy approval process with a certified arborist. These elevation lines tell us that the lot actually slopes down about 8 feet from the front to the back. So our first floor had to be a split level where the garage is actually a bit lower than the main living space. So here's a little sneak peek into what the land survey looks like with the house in its final location. So we sort of centered it nicely between those setback lines, but leaving enough room in the back for a decent sized backyard. And you can see that that tree is missing in this one. Once you know your limitations based on the land survey, the next step is the concept phase, where the design for the house actually starts to take shape. This is the time to give your architect your wish list and your general ideas for how the house should look and function. So you can start with basic things like how many bedrooms and bathrooms you need, and then move on to more granular details like if you want tall vaulted ceilings in the living room with exposed beams, or how big the walk-in shower needs to be in the ensuite, and then even more nuanced things like how you want the kitchen to flow while you're cooking. And depending on how strong or weak your vision is for the layout, your architect may offer up a lot of good suggestions to help get you inspired. You can begin this concept phase with either the exterior design or the interior layout, but keep in mind that one will inform the design for the other. At this phase, I highly recommend that you be upfront about your construction budget with your architect so that they don't go and design something that you ultimately can't afford to build. For instance, if you know that you can only afford to pay $500,000 total for the project and it's going to cost you $200 a square foot for construction, then don't go and design a 5,000 square foot house. Expect to go back and forth at least several times with your architect before you end up with a design that you're happy with. And to be clear, the design at this stage is really for the layout and the locations of fixed things like stairs, doors, windows, rough mechanical, so the drawings at this point don't need to include things like finishes. By finishes, I mean things like the flooring or the shower tiles. For the concept phase of my house, I told my architect that I wanted a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, modern cabin with at least 2,200 square feet of living space with an open floor plan that lent itself to indoor-outdoor living and a 2-car garage. I also said that I wanted the construction to be as economical as possible while still achieving a high-end result. So I was willing to compromise on the shape of the house as long as I could achieve the square footage that I needed. My architect took in that information and came back with a first iteration that had one of the 3 bedrooms on the first floor. The exterior looked like this, with the downstairs bedroom at the front of the house here and the garage off to the side, and the interior looked like this, with the bedroom right here in the front of the house and then the main living space in the back, and then that garage to the side of the house right here. There was nothing wrong with the layout in this design. But going back to what I was saying about trying to be economical about the packaging of the square footage, we found out that this layout with the garage to the side of the house was going to be more costly to build versus having all 3 bedrooms on the second floor with one of those bedrooms over the garage. So moving all 3 bedrooms upstairs and shifting the garage over decreased the overall footprint of the foundation and simplified the roof design, so we actually ended up saving about 50 grand in the quote for construction, and we still got the square footage, the bedrooms, and the garage that we needed. And this is a good opportunity to make the point that if you're on a strict budget and your designer is often giving you multiple options for a single design choice, then make sure you're constantly asking them which option would cost more to execute. And I bet this will make a lot of your decisions easier if you know which option is more expensive. So anyways, my architect took our feedback and came back to us with sketches of 3 different front exteriors as inspiration. These are the options he gave us, and we ended up going with this last one here, primarily because of the large deck off the front of the cabin, and I also really like the look of these double garage doors. After we settled on this general front exterior design, our architect took a stab at the interior layout. You can see the main entrance under the covered porch here, and then the garage at the front with the deck over it. And then you can see that there's a powder room that's been intentionally placed close to where you enter the house so that you can quickly jump in there to take care of business after you put down your things in the mudroom area right here. So if you take a right, then you're in the main living space with the kitchen, the dining room, and the living room. And then there's also a nice pantry tucked away under the stairs to the second floor right here. Moving on to the sketch of the second floor, at the top of the stairs is this loft area right here where you can find the laundry machine, and also there's space for a pull-out bed here. The primary bedroom here at the front of the house is pretty big, and it has its own private deck with a view of Lake Tahoe. It has a walk-through closet right here, and then an ensuite with a nice size walk-in shower, and then a separate water closet, and then also double vanity, which is great. There's also 2 good-sized bedrooms at the back of the house. Each one of these can fit a king-size bed, and then they share this bathroom here that is also accessible through the loft. We were honestly blown away by how close these initial sketches were to what we had envisioned for the interior layout. We went through a few iterations on these layouts and came back with some minor changes, but these initial sketches remain largely unchanged in this final set of drawings. And that brings me to the next step in the design process, which is when your architect finalizes your drawings for the design so that they can submit the plans to a licensed engineer for review. Structural engineering isn't really part of the design process, so I won't cover it extensively in this video. But just keep in mind that the architectural drawings eventually must be reviewed by a qualified engineer who will make sure that the structure is meeting local building codes. Engineered plans are required when applying for building permits, And ideally, your architect is already familiar with the local requirements so they can account for them in their design. Here are the final drawings of the house design that we are currently in the process of building that includes every detail necessary for building the actual structure of the house. I'll go ahead and quickly show you how the rest of the house turned out in the final plans. Here's the back of the house. It has a nice wall of glass here. This sliding door opens out onto this patio. And then these two windows up here are for those two bedrooms at the back of the house. So here's the final first floor layout. And as I said, not much has really changed from that initial sketch. I mean, the only addition here is all of the windows have been added in. And here is the final second floor layout. Everything is largely similar to the sketch. You can see that the windows have also been added in here, and then we added a second vanity to the second master bath. The final step in the home design process is picking all of the finishes on the interior and the exterior of the house. This step can feel quite daunting because you need to pick literally every last detail in your house, down to the knobs on the guest bathroom vanity. There can be hundreds of choices throughout the house that you have to make. This can be fun for some, but also quite stressful and has been known to start quite a few arguments, so watch out for that. But one thing that helps is that you don't have to make every finished decision at once. Construction is mostly a linear process where one thing needs to be completed before you can start the next thing. So you'll have to choose your major exterior finishes like windows and siding much earlier than your flooring and light fixtures, which don't get installed until the end of the construction process. Luckily, there is a lot of inspiration out there in places like Pinterest and YouTube. But the most helpful thing to do if you're able to is visit showrooms. There's nothing like seeing materials in person. Oftentimes, something might look awesome in a photo online, but when you see it and touch it, you realize it has terrible quality. If you're on a strict budget, you have to be very mindful of the grade of materials that you're choosing. If you choose all of the highest end materials for your finishes, then you're going to quickly deplete your allowances in your construction budget. I would prioritize particular items that are really important to you so that you splurge on those and then balance those out by being a little bit more conservative on other finishes so that you still stay within your overall budget. For us, it was important to have a beautiful stone fireplace as the centerpiece of the main living space, as well as high-end natural stone countertops and wood cabinetry throughout the house. So we allocated more of our budget towards those items, and then we decided to save money on the windows throughout the house by going with a black composite window rather than a wood or aluminum window, which would have been a lot more expensive. I do have a construction budget worksheet available that I'll link down below that includes all of the actual prices that I paid for each line item in our build. I also have a lot more videos on building a house from scratch, like how to find and buy land, how to get a construction loan, and how to build a short-term rental. I didn't cover it in this video since it doesn't apply directly to the house design, but there's this whole world of landscape design and architecture that you may want to consider when designing your entire property. So with all that said, thank you for watching, and full disclosure, this is not financial advice. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.